We often hear about poverty and crime like they're two sides of the same coin, right? But it's so much more complicated than that. It's this tangled web, a system of traps that a lot of people fall into and can never seem to escape. Today, we're going to pull on those threads and see exactly how they're connected. This quote, man, it really hits home, doesn't it? It's all about the weight of our choices. But what happens when your choices are limited from the very start? That's what we're going to get into, how a person's starting point in life can create this domino effect that ripples out for generations. So where are we getting all this from? Well, our guide for this deep dive is the incredible work of Dr. Ronnie Rodas. He holds a Master of Science in Criminal Justice and has poured his expertise into researching these exact social issues. His work is the foundation for everything we're about to unpack. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll get into that core link between poverty and crime. Then we'll look at the outside forces, the environmental trap, and the inner stuff, like what's going on in the mind. After that, we'll zoom out and see how the whole system can be a trap. And finally, we'll ask the big question, how in the world do we break this cycle? Okay, let's dive right in. We're starting with the engine that drives this whole problem, the poverty-crime connection. It's a truly vicious cycle where each side just keeps feeding the other, over and over again. When the research talks about the poverty cycle, it's not talking about being short on cash for a month or two. No, this is a generational trap. It's a situation where families get stuck, sometimes for decades, because all the escape routes, a good education, a loan from a bank, they're either blocked off or were never there to begin with. This right here is one of the core findings from Dr. Rose's work, and it's a tough one. The data shows a crystal clear link. If a child is born into poverty, to a family that didn't have access to education, their chances of getting involved in crime as an adult go way, way up. The starting line in life is just not the same for everyone. So how does this actually happen in the real world? That brings us to what the research calls the environmental trap. These are all the powerful forces on the outside that can push someone down a certain path. Okay, just look at this number for a second. The research points out that a 10% rise in kids living in single-parent homes is linked to a 17% jump in juvenile crime. Now, let's be clear, this is not about blaming single parents. It's about showing the incredible financial and social pressure those families are under, often without nearly enough support. And here's the thing, it's almost never just one factor. It's like a perfect storm of challenges. The research identifies all these contributors: neglect, not having positive role models, having a parent in prison, living in a neighborhood with a lot of crime, and just no good jobs or programs around. Every single one adds another bar to the cage. And this is where things get really twisted. According to Dr. Rodas's research, the very system we built to fix the problem can actually make it worse. He points out that some correctional facilities basically become crime universities. Instead of being reformed, young people are surrounded by more experienced offenders, and they can come out with more criminal knowledge than they went in with. It just feeds right back into the cycle. Okay, so we've talked about the outside world. Now let's turn inward and look at the intense internal pressures. What's going on with the mind, drugs, and just sheer desperation? The research lays out this really tragic path. It all starts with the constant, crushing stress of poverty. That stress makes it incredibly hard to cope. Over time, that can turn into hopelessness, a feeling like the rules don't matter anyway. For some, drugs and alcohol become a way to escape that reality. And once addiction gets its hooks in, committing crimes can feel like the only option left to support it. And this is so important to understand. It's not just about people making bad choices. The research shows that chronic stress and mental illness can literally push the brain into survival mode. It's a biological response. And when your brain is in that state, all it cares about is right now. Long-term consequences go out the window, and that can lead to impulsive, erratic behavior. All right, let's pull the camera back a bit. We're going to look at the bigger picture now, a whole system of traps. We'll see how our social systems, sometimes with the best intentions, can end up reinforcing the very cycle they're trying to stop. So this chart, which uses some 2014 data cited in the research, is really just to set the stage. Back then, almost half the country lived in a household that got some kind of government benefit. That just shows you the massive scale of the need out there. But it also sets us up for a potential problem. And this right here shows one of the clearest escape hatches, education. I mean, just look at that gap. It is huge. We're talking about an average of $20,000 a year for a high school dropout versus nearly $70,000 for someone with a bachelor's degree. It's an obvious path up, but it's also one of the hardest to get on if you're already stuck in the cycle. Now, this leads us to a pretty controversial idea that the research explores, known as the welfare trap. The theory goes that a system designed to be a safety net can, for some, accidentally create long-term dependency. Now, the critique isn't about the people receiving help. It's a question about the system's design, whether it can unintentionally make it harder to develop job skills and, in the long run, actually escape poverty. So, after all that, all these systemic, environmental, and personal traps, you gotta be asking, is there even a way out? Well, let's get into our final section, breaking the cycle. The research suggests we need a fundamental shift in how we think about this, a concept called decriminalizing poverty. This does not mean making crime legal. Not at all. It means changing our target. Instead of focusing all our energy on punishing the criminal, we attack the source of the crime, the addiction, the mental illness, the total lack of opportunity. So, what does that actually look like on the ground? Well, Dr. Rodis's research lays out a path forward. Things like creating real job opportunities for people without a lot of schooling, making drug and mental health treatment way more accessible, supporting mentorship programs that give kids positive role models, and, above all, focusing on education as the ultimate key to freedom. And really, this is the mic drop moment of the whole thing. The big takeaway from the research is this. America doesn't just have a drug problem, and it doesn't just have a crime problem. At its very core, it has a poverty problem. And that leaves us with one final, very tough question to chew on. If poverty creates an environment where crime is almost inevitable, then who is truly responsible when a crime happens? It's a complicated question, for sure, with no easy answers, but it forces us to think about what justice really means.